CUPRA's third unique design, the Tavascan, takes this growing Spanish brand into an EV market segment for slightly larger models, and does so with a real splash of Iberian flair that effectively masks the shared VW Group underpinnings.
The stylish Tavascan is a slightly larger kind of CUPRA EV crossover. Here we're going to take a closer look. We're fairly used to the CUPRA formula by now. Take an existing VW Group platform and its associated powertrains and sharpen up the looks and handling before creating a more interestingly trimmed cabin, usually with some copper-coloured bits. This approach worked like a charm in creating the compact CUPRA Born EV from a Volkswagen ID.3. Can it be as effective in the next EV class up, where this CUPRA Tavascan borrows just about everything you can't see from a mid-sized Volkswagen ID.4, as well as from a Skoda Enyaq, an Audi Q4 e-tron, and even a Ford Explorer? The Tavascan, launched in mid-2024, was a long time coming. The concept car of the same name dates all the way back to 2019, following which CUPRA had to work out where to build it, exclusively in China, as it turned out. This car's billed as a new era for the brand, though we were also told that about the company's previous two models, that Born EV and the combustion-powered Formentor. But this is the largest and most ambitious CUPRA yet. Good enough to tempt you where an equivalent Volkswagen, Skoda or Audi EV might not? Well, to find out more, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. With the smaller CUPRA Born, this young Spanish brand managed to inject a rather different and more energetic feel into conventional VW Group EV engineering. And to some extent, that's also true with this Tavascan. Right off the bat, you sense the light, quick response from the bespoke, more feelsome CUPRA steering rack, and the car feels well balanced through the bends, though inevitably, thanks to its extra weight, isn't as agile as a Born. It's impressive that CUPRA has managed to build in this more dynamic vibe without hobbling this car with an unyielding standard of ride. The Spanish engineers extensively tuned the McPherson strut front and multi-link rear suspension to deliver this, recalibrating the spring and damper rates. Things improve further if you're able to stretch beyond base trim and get a version with dynamic chassis control, adaptive damping, which works through the various drive profile selection modes: range, comfort, performance, CUPRA and individual. You select these via a little round button that hangs off the steering wheel, with the one on the right directly engaging the two sportiest options. Though this Tavascan was launched a long time after its VW Group rivals, that doesn't mean it benefits from the Wolfsburg conglomerate's very latest EV engineering. Instead of the sophisticated 79 kilowatt-hour battery that would have delivered, what's served up here on all models is the usual 77 kilowatt-hour battery that in this class you might be familiar with from an ID.4, an Enyaq, a Q4 e-tron, or even a Ford Explorer. It energises two very different Tavascan variants, the more affordable of these being the single-motor rear-driven model that we're trying here, which has 286 PS and is good for up to 352 miles of range. Rest to 62 miles an hour takes 6.6 seconds en route to the 112 mile an hour top speed that all Tavascans share. Your alternative is the dual-motor all-wheel drive VZ derivative, which has a motor on each axle, a lightweight 80 kilowatt unit at the front and a beefier 210 kilowatt motor at the back. Total output is rated at 340 PS, and though the system's rear biased, up to 30% of power can be sent frontwards if tractional needs demand it. The VZ badge designates veloz, or speed in Spanish, but this twin motor model's 0 to 62 mile an hour time of 5.5 seconds is hardly any quicker than that of this base variant. That's mainly because in a Tavascan VZ, the same 545 Nm torque figure must propel along 89 kilos of extra bulk, curb weight rising in the top models to an even more portly 2,267 kilograms, which inevitably dents the EV range figure too, which falls to a best of 324 miles. Whichever drivetrain you select, there are no silly drivetrain noise options, which you might think good, but there aren't many of the paddle shift selectable regen braking options that an EV of this sort needs to have. And with the fiercest of these engaged, off-throttle braking significant, but has nothing like the arresting one-pedal feel you'll find offered by some class rivals. Braking, by the way, is something CUPRA needs to work on. The pedal's a bit wooden in feel and difficult to use smoothly. The whole system's a bit hobbled by the use of old-fashioned rear drums rather than discs. Refinements well up to class standards, and all models get the Volkswagen Group's clever travel assist system, which, in concert with the standard predictive adaptive cruise control setup, can take care of a lot of the driving duties for you at highway speeds. This rear-driven model has a particularly tight turning circle, just 10.2 metres, which is great in town. Well, it certainly looks distinctive, doesn't it? The MEB platform dictated proportions here might be familiar, but the packaging really sets this CUPRA apart. In the same way that the brand's smaller Born EV almost unrecognisably repackages a Volkswagen ID.3 with a more aggressive body kit, so you might struggle to see the Volkswagen ID.4 donor model in this Tavascan's riot of folds, creases and undisguised attitude. There's no need for an additional SUV coupe body shape, as is required to supplement the appeal of this model's three close VW Group EV cousins, that ID.4 and the Skoda Enyaq and Audi's Q4 e-tron. As you can see, the Tavascan is already quite coupe-like, with a swept-back look across its wind-cheating 4,640mm length. The drag factor is just 0.26 CD. It's the biggest car CUPRA has yet made, a definite size up not only from the Born but also from the combustion-powered Formentor, and arguably the most striking, with pronounced black lower sill cladding and the kind of big wheels of between 19 to 21 inches that you'd think a range-optimised modern EV of this sort wouldn't want. Old-fashioned drum brakes, by the way, reside on the rear axle. The designers hope you'll notice what they call a helmet concept, where the polished black A-pillar connects the windscreen to the side glass, supposedly generating a panoramic effect similar to that of a racing driver's visor. At the front, the intimidating so-called shark nose is particularly striking and carries forward a recently introduced brand signature Q, a constellation of three triangles in LED headlights that get advanced matrix beams above base trim. You'll probably also like the fact that the angry CUPRA logo on the sculptural twin-crease bonnet illuminates at night. A key design theme, replicated inside, is the style of this central lower vent that flows up into arms that stretch each side over accentuated corner cutouts towards the outer edges of the car. There really is an awful lot going on. Not all of it works though. These slim vents at the leading edge of the bonnet have the side effect of channeling water and road grime onto the windscreen in bad weather. It's rather more restrained at the rear, or at least it is further up, where the usual full-width light bar sits above spaced-out CUPRA lettering. Lower down, though, there's this pronounced glossy black-ribbed diffuser panel that could have come straight from the DTM. The sloping tailgate glass is lovely. The fact that it doesn't come with a rear wiper sadly isn't. As usual, what's more important though is what you can't see, this car's sophisticated MEB platform architecture, which cost the Volkswagen Group £54 billion to develop. After all this, it would be a tad disappointing to get inside and find a borrowed VW Group interior. As you approach the car and it flashes its lights at you, the signs are good. So let's negotiate the rather fiddly door handle and take a look. Well, this is a VW Group interior, but as on the outside, it's been very artfully disguised, where the concept car-like cabin is like nothing else in the segment. The front end design theme we referenced outside is taken up by this central spine, which flows out of the dashboard into the console between the seats. Instead of the usual wall of screens, there are two quite different ones, a small display for the instruments and an enormous 15-inch monitor for the infotainment, both borrowed from the Wolfsburg parts bin, of course, but tailored with jauntier CUPRA graphics. The Spanish maker has been permitted to add a few more of its own design touches too, like eye-catching ambient lighting structures in the air vents, copious amounts of copper-coloured finishing, and an eclectic selection of quite interesting materials, from suede to a wetsuit-like trimming called neoprene. But because underneath it all is first-generation MEB design VW Group architecture, there are familiar irritations like awkward haptic sliders for volume and temperature, with climate otherwise controllable only by screen menus, the lack of dedicated switches for the rear windows, and fiddly touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel. Still, it's also interestingly packaged that you don't mind too much. If you're the kind of customer Cupra's aiming at here, you'll love little touches like the concave door panels with their 3D parametric trimming and copper-coloured handle pulls, the copper-stitched one-piece bucket sports seats, the aluminium pedals, and the circular satellite drive mode buttons that hang off the horizontal spokes of the flat bottom wheel with its triangular brand logo. Above base trim, smart lighting glows through perforations in the door cards, and as with this model's VW Group cousins, there's an information light bar that stretches beneath the windscreen and flashes different colours in your eye line for things you need to know. All of it's almost, but not quite, enough to disguise a general lack of overall quality across most of the fixtures and fittings, quite a few of which don't feel as premium as you might hope they would. We mentioned the little digital cockpit instrument screen. At just 5.3 inches in size, there's obviously not the space to show much, but it works okay with a central digital speedo that steering wheel buttons can shift to the left or the right to make space for either a drive assist graphic or navigation instructions. Pretty much everything else you'll need is on this big landscape format central screen, which is of the latest VW Group generation, with media, battery and car shortcut functions at the top, next to right-hand corner icons that vary the home screen between either customisable widget spaces. Here we've got radio, phone and nav mapping, or rows of little icons for things like an app store, the CUPRA Assistant voice control system, or the brand's full-link Apple CarPlay and Android Auto phone mirroring functions. Avoid bass trim, and there's also an excellent 425-watt 12-speaker Sennheiser premium audio system included. What else? Well, most models get an augmented reality head-up display, and the cabin ambient lighting can either vary with selected drive mode or set in a variety of trendy colours designated by the settings Liquid, Pulse, Electrified, Speed, Boreal and Me. Sustainable materials feature throughout, with textiles created from up to 90% recycled polyester, and the lovely microfiber upholstery that features on seats above base trim is also created from recycled sources. You won't be so impressed by the over-the-shoulder view. A shallow rear screen and chunky rear pillars mean you'll really need the standard rear camera and sensors. These sports seats are supportive, but must do without lumbar adjustment with base trim. Cabin practicalities a mixed bag. Below this central spine you'll find a cubby with a wireless charging mat and a couple of USB-C ports, though further space below is wasted. And between the seats, behind the cup holders, there's a deep twin-lidded box with a 12-volt socket. Not so good are the small door bins and the way that the glove box is halved in size by the fuse box. Okay, let's take a look in the back. Now, the exterior body length and generous 2,766mm wheelbase length are both virtually the same as the Volkswagen Group's longest contender in this class, the Skoda Enyaq. And that car's a class leader for rear seat space. Is that what we'll get here? Let's have a look. Well, it feels pretty roomy back here. In this class, you'd get slightly more legroom in a Kia EV6 or a Tesla Model Y, but this CUPRA positions you a little more comfortably, which is arguably more important. Thanks to the flat floor, a centre-seated adult could be accommodated without too much difficulty, and despite the swept-back roofline, headroom's okay, even with the panoramic glass roof fitted that's standard above base trim. Because of the high window line, you really need this and these small rear quarter-light windows if this rear cabin isn't to feel a bit dark and enclosed. As usual with a VW Group EV in this segment, the bench base doesn't slide, nor does the backrest recline. It's a bit mean of CUPRA to delete this central armrest with base trim, because without it, there are no cup holders back here. But central climate controls feature on all models, along with overhead reading lights, B-pillar hooks, seat back pockets and twin USB-C ports. The door bins are basically just bottle holders, and Art Deco design touches include these V-shape indentations in the front seat backs. Let's finish by raising this powered tailgate and taking a look at luggage space. You'll have to store everything in the back here because there's no underbonnet frunk for the charging leads. CUPRA expects you to store those in the space provided beneath the floor of this reasonably sized 540-litre boot. It has a flat cargo base with a wide opening, but you don't get this adjustable height floor unless you avoid base trim. There are wide recesses to the left and right. The left side features straps. There's a light on the right, a 12-volt socket on the left, and bag hooks on both sides. A ski hatch is provided for longer items, and the backrest folds almost completely level to extend the space available to 1,550 litres. As we filmed in spring 2025, pricing for the volume rear-driven 286 PS Tavascan model was starting from around £47,350 for a base V1 variant. But ideally, you'd want to find the extra £6,500 CUPRA wants for the more dynamic-looking V2 version that we're trying here. You'd be looking at around £55,000 for something like this test car. If you want an all-wheel drive 340 PS dual motor Tavascan, trim levels are designated by VZ, and prices, as we filmed, were starting from around £56,000 for the base VZ1 version. It's £4,900 more, so around £61,000 to get a VZ2 all-wheel drive variant that looks more like this. In terms of the value proposition and rivals, the most logical place to start your analysis is with the Volkswagen ID.4 model this Tavascan borrows all its basic engineering from. In rear-driven 77 kilowatt-hour form, an ID.4 undercuts this CUPRA by around £3,000. If you want the dual motor all-wheel drive drivetrain in your Tavascan, it's worth pointing out that you can have it in an ID.4 for around £10,000 less than is being charged for an all-wheel drive version of this CUPRA. This Spanish manufacturer contends that spec differences explain some of these price differentials. We're not convinced. There's actually another mainstream brand model in this segment that shares all the same engineering with this car. That's the Ford Explorer, which is a little smaller but has some clever cabin touches. One of those, if you're interested, will save you around £1,500 to £2,000 over the equivalent version of this CUPRA. The other model in this segment that shares this CUPRA's engineering is the Audi Q4 e-tron. One of those will cost around £5,000 more than a rear-driven Tavascan, while the top 340 PS all-wheel drive Q4 e-tron will cost you around £2,000 more than the all-wheel drive version of this CUPRA. Let's assume that you're still a Tavascan candidate, but want to know the alternatives to Volkswagen Group engineering in this segment. Well, there are plenty in the chasing pack for a similar spend. Tesla's Model 3 and Model Y, Hyundai's Ioniq 5, Kia's EV6, Polestar's 2, Renault's Scenic E-Tech Electric, Nissan's Ariya, Volvo's EX40 and Skoda's Enyaq, plus Toyota's BZ4X and its clone Subaru's Solterra. You could also possibly look at the Vauxhall Grandland Electric and Peugeot's E3008 and E408. Plus, there are emerging brand contenders like the BYD Sea Lion 7, the XPeng G6, the Leapmotor C10, the KGM Taurus EVX, the Skywell BE11 and the JQ 7. If you want something slightly more premium, which means, of course, that it'll also be slightly more expensive, there's BMW's i4, Mercedes EQA and EQB, the Genesis GV60, and the Lexus UX300E and RZ. Despite all of those many options, you might feel that there's simply nothing quite like Tavascan, or at least nothing quite like the deal your CUPRA dealers prepared to offer you on one. If that's the case, then you're going to need to know just how generous the Spanish brand has been with standard spec. So let's take a look at that now. Even base V1 spec gets you quite a lot. 19-inch Volcano wheels, LED headlamps, 3D rear lamps, dark tinted rear windows, a powered tailgate, keyless entry, all-round parking sensors and an anti-theft alarm. Inside, there's a 5.3-inch digital cockpit instrument screen, 3-zone climatronic air conditioning, a heated steering wheel, aluminium pedals, ambient lighting, bucket seats, an electro-dimming rear view mirror, a rear view camera and a wireless phone charger. Media connectivity's taken care of by a 15-inch navigation system with intelligent voice control and full-link wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And there's the usual application, the My CUPRA app, allowing you to interact with your car via your smartphone. Standard Tavascan drive stuff includes drive profile selection drive modes, dynamic steering, and an intelligent park assist system that will automatically park the car for you. All versions also get the Volkswagen Group's clever travel assist system, which, in concert with the standard predictive adaptive cruise control setup, can take care of a lot of the driving duties for you at highway speeds. It enables assisted steering, braking and acceleration at speeds of up to 130 miles an hour. By integrating the signals from the front camera as well as GPS and map data, the system can incorporate into its assistance input local speed limit information, town boundary signs, junctions and roundabouts. If you can stretch to this V2 spec or the VZ1 trim level, CUPRA will add larger copper highlighted 21-inch Catla alloy wheels, matrix LED headlights, a panoramic glass roof, dynamic chassis control, adaptive damping. And while inside, V2 spec gets you a 12-speaker Sennheiser premium audio system, an augmented reality head-up display, micro-suede upholstery, 12-way power-adjustable heated bucket front seats, immersive ambient lighting, a top-view surround camera system, illuminated door mouldings, a rear armrest and adjustable boot double floor. With the priciest all-wheel drive VZ2 flagship variant, CUPRA also includes grippier Cup bucket seats with ventilation, Cup Hero leather upholstery and 21-inch Etna forged alloy wheels. It's a pity no trim level includes the heat pump you'll need to preserve driving range in colder months. For that, you'll have to pay extra for the optional winter pack, which also includes heat for the rear seats and a heated windscreen. You can also add a tow bar onto which a bike rack can be attached and horizontal roof bars that will allow you to attach a roof box and a ski rack. Unless you specify your Tavascan in the only standard colour, this metallic Atacama Desert shade, you'll have to pay your dealer extra for your chosen paint preference. Safety standards are strong with a 5-star Euro NCAP rating. There's front assist emergency braking with distance warning, swerve support and an oncoming vehicle when turning feature to help you at junctions. There's also lane assist, blind spot side assist, speed warning, rollover assist, traffic sign recognition and traffic hazard alert, plus exit warning to stop passengers from opening their doors in the face of oncoming traffic. A drowsiness monitor will warn you if you need to stop, and emergency assist brings the car to a controlled halt if you're taken ill at the wheel. We gave you the mileage figures for the 77 kilowatt hour battery, that's 82 kilowatt hours gross in our driving section, but we'll let you have them in more detail here. The 353 mile figure we gave you for the rear driven model applies to base V1 spec. It's 339 miles for this V2 version. The 320 mile figure we gave you for the dual motor VZ version applies to VZ1 spec. It's 299 miles for the top VZ2. Sadly, you have to pay extra for the heat pump that'll maintain these figures in the colder winter months. What about charging? Well, the DC public peak charging speed isn't particularly fast, rated at 135 kilowatts, but that's still enough to top up the battery from 10 to 80% in 28 minutes, which is reasonably competitive. Home AC charging from a typical 7.4 kilowatt wall box from empty to full will take around 10.5 hours for both derivatives. You can drop that time to 8 hours if you're charging from an 11 kilowatt three-phase supply. Customers will be offered a CUPRA branded domestic wall box for home charging, which can be controlled using the company's easy charging My CUPRA smartphone app. If you're converting to an EV from a previous conventional combustion model, you'll obviously need to factor in the cost of an EV charger for your home and perhaps also your office. There's still some complexity around the best charging hardware to choose and who's eligible for a government grant. And obviously the costs can vary depending on the distance from your main meter to the charger and other factors. There's lots of advice out there, of course. To guide you, we consulted plugmein.com, who offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. CUPRA says that its aim is to make sure that the battery pack lasts as long as the car, and sure enough, that battery pack is warranted to have at least 70% of its usable capacity after 8 years or 100,000 miles. As with all EVs, until April 2026, you'll be BIK tax rated at a low 3% rate. Insurance is rated at Group 34 for this rear-driven model or Group 38 for the all-wheel drive VZ. Because of the asking price, VED road tax will set you back £620 a year for the first 5 years of ownership. Residual values after 3 years and 36,000 miles vary between 46 and 49%, about average by class standards. Servicing is needed every year or 10,000 miles, whichever comes first. And CUPRA offers either 2 or 4 year service plans. There's a better warranty than you get with the other VW Group MED EV models in this segment, 5 years and 90,000 miles. If you liked the CUPRA Born but need a slightly larger EV, you'll really like this Tavascan. But we think a bigger market for this car will come from people who like the engineering and quality of other VW Group mid-sized electric SUVs, but find them a bit dull and characterless. That's not a criticism you could level at a Tavascan, which is why we think it'll meet its sales targets and then some, despite the lack of class-leading EV range or charging stats. Only in terms of the quality of its cabin fittings could you criticise this CUPRA in comparison to an equivalent Volkswagen, Skoda or Audi EV. You might feel that the more interesting interior design makes up for this, or you might not. But either way, it's difficult to deny that the Tavascan delivers something interesting and different, which this overcrowded segment badly needs.